Thanks for joining me. Again, Lauren Blauvelt, Executive Director of Planned Parenthood Advocacy of Ohio. I use she, her pronouns, and as always, it's just wonderful to be with you all. And I'm really excited for today's topic. Part of working for Planned Parenthood as long as I have is I'm always learning. I learn along with our community, and I feel like never so much than when we're talking about menopause and perimenopause, and I'm in these awesome team meetings talking about new care and hearing from Holly, and I'm sitting here and I'm like, I think she's talking about me. I think it's me. I'm the person who doesn't know anything. So I hope that you all are going to learn as much as I have been. I'm so excited to talk to Senior Director of Clinical Product Development, Holly Baumberger. Holly, thanks so much for joining us. We know nothing. We can't wait to talk about. Maybe start us off with some basics of what is perimenopause, what is menopause, and we'll really get into why it's so important for our patients and for Planned Parenthood to be a provider.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me today, Lauren. So again, everyone, hello. I am Holly Baumberger. My pronouns are she, her. As Lauren mentioned, I'm the Senior Director of Clinical Product Development, but I'm also a family nurse practitioner. So let's talk about menopause. So when we hear the term perimenopause is simply just defined as the time around menopause. It's that simple. And it's an undefined period of time that can last for years. When we talk about menopause is 12 months after the final menstrual period, and that is the definition of menopause.
Yeah, it seems really simple, but also seems like something that before you shared that on a team meeting that no one had told me that before. How is it possible that so many women, so many people with uteruses and ovaries could not know the definition? That we're all going to face this, right?
Absolutely. Everyone who has ovaries is going to have ovarian aging. It is a stage of life that we all go through. But yes, to your point, there's not a lot of conversation around it. So why is that? So when we look at the historical context of menopause, a lot of how we deliver that care is really shaped by a study from 2002 that was widely misunderstood. And today we are still working to correct the misinformation around hormone therapy. So when we talk about menopause care, we're not just talking about symptoms. We're talking about how the healthcare systems respond to patients across their entire lifespan. And menopause is one of the clearest examples of where we got it wrong. And we have an opportunity to do better now.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like we have an opportunity to do better. And it sounds like, when we're thinking about Planned Parenthood as a provider of reproductive health care, we say reproductive. I think we tend to think about the time that folks are thinking about getting pregnant or trying not to get pregnant. But, this is really talking about a continuum of care and our whole life cycle. Can you talk about, so as a Planned Parenthood patient, could you be a Planned Parenthood patient for your whole life?
Yeah, that's a great question, Lauren, and the answer is yes. I know that many people associate Planned Parenthood with reproductive care, sexual reproductive care for the reproductive age persons looking to have children, grow a family, but there's a whole phase of care that comes after that stage of life, which is midlife care or menopause care, which everyone goes through. And as a former school nurse, I taught sexual reproductive health to junior high students, but I'm sure most of us never received any kind of teaching or lessons about menopause care.
I'll be honest, I barely got the health in my teen years. I fell through the cracks there somehow. But what did you start hearing from our patients that really got your attention around midlife care?
So it was a combination of patients and social media and just seeing the changes that have come about in the last year. So patients don't often know what they're experiencing. They come in and they talk about symptoms of menopause and how it's impacting their quality of life. And overall, the healthcare community has just sort of ignored it, or kind of talk to patients and let them know that, hey, this is just something that you go through. It's just you have to get through it. It's just largely been ignored as something that can significantly impact middle-aged individuals going through hormonal changes in another stage of life. So that in combination with, you hear on social media, it's widely popular, you'll hear on social media how people feel gaslit by their providers, that they're not listening to them and that they're talking about these symptoms and they are not feeling heard. So as Planned Parenthood, that is a unique opportunity where we specialize in sexual reproductive health care for our patients to also see us to support them in their midlife care.
It really feels like midlife care is a time where we spend a lot of time. How can such a large gap exist for, really, it feels like almost all providers?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's a great question. So at the top of the call, we talked a little bit about the historical context of menopause in the medical community. So really, this all dates back to the 1990s. The Women's Health Initiative, or WHI, was a large government-funded study that was designed to look at the major health risk in postmenopausal women, including the use of hormone therapy. So it specifically looked at estrogen alone and then estrogen combined with progesterone. But here's the really important piece of the context that often gets missed. The average participant in the study was 63 years old, which means that most of these individuals are more than a decade past menopause. So what happened? In 2002, the progesterone arm of the study was stopped because the data showed that the risk outweighed the benefits. And the media headlines that followed were dramatic, highlighting the increased risk of breast cancer, heart disease, stroke, and blood clots. Almost overnight, hormone therapy prescribing dropped by 80%, and millions of women were told to stop treatment immediately. More than 2 decades later, we now know that the WHI study results were misunderstood, misrepresented, and in many cases incorrectly applied. The real-world impact of that was significant. We had an entire generation of those with a uterus who were left to suffer through untreated menopause, dealing with hot flashes, insomnia, brain fog, depression, and sexual dysfunction. So in many ways, we created the gap based on a misunderstanding of the data. So what went wrong? So this is where it's important to be really clear. Okay, the study itself was not wrong. The issue was how the findings were interpreted and applied. So first, the age of the participants mattered. These individuals were older, well past the age of menopause. And we now know that starting hormone therapy later carries different risk factors than starting earlier. Second, the study used a single formulation and route, oral estrogen with a progesterone. Today, we know that different formulations and doses and delivery methods, like transdermal patches, have very different safety profiles.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think this is really important. There were real consequences in the decades between the study and patients not receiving hormone replacement therapy, and that's the therapy that you're talking about to
Yes.
serve menopause and perimenopause patients. Can you just share a little bit more about what those consequences were and what the recommendation is? And you know, I say this is a podcast episode. We have the benefit of we're connected to you and to providers. So this is a conversation for each person to have with their provider. This is a great opportunity to look at our website and make an appointment with Planned Parenthood. But you know, what was the risk, the cost, and you know, the real life impact, and how are we fixing that with making sure that treatment is understood and available?
So over the past 2 decades, additional research has really shaped our understanding of hormone therapy, right? We know that one of the most important concepts is called the timing hypothesis. So that those who start hormone therapy within 10 years of menopause onset or before the age of 60 tend to have a much more favorable risk-benefit profile. We also know that estrogen therapy only in women without a uterus may actually be associated with a lower risk of breast cancer and all-cause mortality. So what are the benefits? where do we go wrong? So the benefits of hormone therapy are relief of vasomotor symptoms, commonly known as hot flashes or night sweats, improved sleep and mood, maintenance of bone density and prevention of fractures, protection against atrophy of the urogenital area, so vaginal dryness, painful intercourse, cardiovascular benefits, particularly when initiated in younger people. And also there's improvements in cognitive function and metabolic health for individuals on hormone therapy. So where do we fall short? What happened after the Women's Health Institute is a great example of how healthcare can overcorrect based on fear. Instead of evolving with the science, we stayed stuck in outdated assumptions. Even today, hormone therapy use remains extremely low. Only 3 to 4% of individuals, despite strong evidence supporting the safety and effectiveness in the right population. The goal is to shift.
I was just like, Holly, you really like only 3 to 4%?
Only 3 to 4%. And that's down from 30 to 40% prior to the WHI study, prior to 2002.
Wow. So awareness is also a big part of making sure that our communities get the care that they need. That we all have loved ones who are aging. We all have loved
Absolutely.
ones who deserve to get the care that they need and have the information to make that decision. So it's so important that awareness around perimenopause and menopause and just midlife care, and that the timing, it sounds like the timing really matters. All right. Well, I hope everybody makes their appointment at Planned Parenthood, and definitely share this episode, because this is a great way to start this conversation with people in your lives.
Yeah. So, I mean, to add to that, it's interesting because the study went to the media instead of through the medical community as it typically does first, it caused fear both in the patient population and the provider population, which we still have impacts today. Many medical programs, many advanced provider programs stopped teaching menopause care because the attitude was, well, if we can't treat it, why teach it? So as a result, there is a decade or more of providers that haven't been trained on this care. And it's contributing to that sense that patients aren't heard and don't feel heard. I think there was a study done I looked at recently that said that OBGYN, so this is a specialty that specializes or should specialize in this care, that almost 50% of residents that were graduating from that program could not tell you what the treatment was for a postmenopausal person.
I definitely have family members that fell into this gap, and just as a total aside, I'm sure she would love me sharing, but my mom had to start taking calcium in her later life because menopause, like during the time that she should have been taking probably hormone replacement therapy, or at least had been treated differently, it was missed. So the bone density, that was definitely a problem that she faced. There's real cost and impact. When providers don't know.
And we're seeing that now, long-term health consequences in addition to poor quality of life. When safe, effective hormone therapy could have been provided to alleviate some of those. So we know now that instead of applying hormone therapy as a blanket to everybody gets it or everybody doesn't get it, this care is very nuanced. It's very individualized. It's about assessing the patient's past medical history, their risk factors, and deciding what's best for them. Now, it could be what type of hormone, it could be what form. Is it transdermal? Is it oral? All of those have different risk factors. So it's really individualized care that meets the patient's needs and treats their symptoms that they are going through, because that's another common myth. The language, we used to call it HRT, which would stand for hormone replacement therapy. We no longer call it that. We call it menopause hormone therapy, because we know that the hormone levels are low in menopause. We expect that. So the goal is not to replace them to the premenopause state, but to alleviate symptoms. And that's where the safety of it comes into play, as you're not bringing their hormones back up to a level that they were when they were in their reproductive years, but you're treating the symptoms from an estrogen deficiency.
And I know this is something that you've been studying and working on for a long time, Holly. Thank you. And thank you for joining us to talk about it. This is a continuum of care. This is for current patients, but also, you can see new patients, right? Mm-hmm.
Yes. Any patient that is experiencing symptoms that they believe to be perimenopause, menopause, we can have a conversation. Let's talk about it, because we're not talking about it enough. So if that's the message that I want all my patients to know, that come and talk to us. We want to talk to you about it. We want to help you. You don't have to suffer in silence anymore. You are not alone.
Absolutely. You don't have to suffer in silence. You're not alone. So if someone calls or makes an online appointment, what does that look like right now, Holly?
So right now we currently have menopause care being provided in a few of our brick and mortar sites, Toledo, Youngstown, and Rocky River. And then we also have access through telehealth. So no matter where you live, we can see you for this service anywhere in Ohio.
One last thing from Holly. What's the one thing that you want our audience to walk away from when they're thinking about midlife care?
What I want our audience to walk away with this, walk away from this podcast with, is that menopause isn't a one-time event. It's a major midlife transition that has implications for their long-term health. And yet our healthcare system has historically treated this as an afterthought. At PPGo, we have intentionally designed our care model to support you throughout your life, to cover the care across your lifespan, from your reproductive years to your midlife years and beyond. We know that 40% of an individual's time is spent in menopause. That is a huge chunk of a person's life. And by 2060, there's going to be 90 million individuals that are age 50 and above. So the continuing need for care is only going to grow.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Holly Baumberger. Thanks for spending some time with us. And make sure everyone share the episode. Make sure you make an appointment now. Think about your midlife health care. If it's time for you to make an appointment, now's the time.
That's a wrap, babe. And remember, autonomy needs all of us to rise. Like, subscribe, and share this with the group chat. Support the work by donating to Planned Parenthood Advocates of Ohio at ppao.org and text CARE, C-A-R-E, to 22422 to protect Medicaid and Planned Parenthood. See y'all later.